Welcome into the checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. I'm Ken Ray.
I'm Nicholas Raba.
And I'm Nicholas Tacek.
If we were to ask you how you keep from getting sick, you'd probably have a few ideas. Plenty of rest, balanced diet, vitamins maybe, and who knows, maybe don't hang out with sick people. But the question is, do you know how to keep yourself from getting digital sick? Digital Sick, by the way, is my techno band. It's, see us at the rickshaw every Friday night. Here's the thing. You know what malware is, but do you know how to avoid malware? Because that's, of course, what brings the digital sick we were talking about earlier, not my band. Kind of like in real life, you can do, everything to keep yourself from getting sick, and you still get sick. On the digital side, it's just not possible to avoid all of the things out there that might end up troubling you. You can't avoid all the viruses. You can't avoid all the malicious software. Not all the time. But you can drastically reduce your risk of exposure with the right habits. When you know where malware is most likely to be and how it's most likely to attack, you can take steps to avoid it. From email attachments to hacked websites, there's just malware lurking in some very easily spotted places. Today, we're going to look at how malware is distributed, the means, the methods, and the most effective ways to mitigate the risks. So on today's checklist, sites created to deliver malware, legit sites that are hacked to deliver malware, the phenomenon known as malvertising, file sharing P2P networks and untrustworthy sites, and finally deceptive downloads designed to trick you. So let's start at the top. This seems like this would be the easiest one to avoid. Maybe I'm missing something. Sites created specifically as a vehicle for malware.
So this is one of the most common ways to contract a malware infection, and it's increasingly popular due to how easy it is to set up a domain name and website. Many times these sites serve no purpose other than to lure users in and eventually serve them malware. How these sites attract users can vary from hacker to hacker. As one example, a malware-infested site might accompany a phishing effort with an official-sounding pretense. Users receive encouragement to visit a website and enter some type of personal information. This might be through a pop-up ad that looks like it came from your favorite Adobe, or it could be an email urging you to click on a link in order to get support. Upon clicking the link, the users might instead end up on a site that exploits known vulnerabilities to execute malware. Sometimes you might simply mistype a name of a popular website and end up on a domain name that's been set up by a malware author to trap the user. Staying away from these type of sites might seem easy, but it isn't always easy to tell whether you could trust a page you'd like to visit. Ads might deceive you and direct you to a malicious domain, for example. In other cases, the air of legitimacy can be strong enough to fool even some veteran users. Overall, you're more likely to encounter malware from another less direct avenue. But these dangerous websites do exist.
Now, one that's actually, I guess there should always be a little bit of trepidation when you go to a new site of which you've never heard, especially if you're thinking about, plunking down money with them or giving them any kind of personal information. Something that's scarier sounding, but I would imagine also much less common. The second item on the checklist, hacked websites unknowingly distributing malware. Remind me, didn't this actually, I want to say this happened with one of the free streaming music services earlier this year. And it wasn't their fault. It wasn't like music service XYZ was doing this, but they had an advertiser that was accidentally or maybe intentionally installing malware into an ad. Do you remember what I'm talking about, first of all?
That's something we'll cover. I think we're covering that one in point 3, actually. That's slightly different than this one.
Yeah, well, no, it is. So I was wondering if they were going to be together. But seriously, one day I'll read ahead. Then again, I love being surprised, so maybe I shouldn't. Hacked websites unknowingly distributing malware. Some place that you normally go, you're saying could be subverted.
Yeah, at times malware reaches users not through sites intentionally serving it up, but through exploitation of vulnerabilities in otherwise normal sites. If there are exploits in the framework a site or server uses, it could potentially be a path to the users. The popular web platform WordPress has seen quite a few security vulnerabilities over the years, which have led to some serious issues. Since WordPress powers millions of websites, it's an attractive target for hackers looking to hijack legitimate sites in order to distribute the malware. These flaws include the ability to run programs or execute arbitrary code, as we say, on a user's machine. Over time, exploits have caused users visiting WordPress sites to suddenly contract malware. Other sites can be vulnerable in similar ways, like when pages that are utilizing Adobe Flash, that they suffer from security flaws within the application. If you're a blogger yourself or a webmaster overseeing a domain using a system like WordPress, it's important to stay updated. That means two things. First, you must ensure that you upgrade the software on your servers to the latest version as soon as possible, especially for updates containing security patches. Second, you should take an active interest in the development of your platform. Watch for news about security holes or zero-day vulnerabilities. If you're using software as a service platform, such as hosting your blog on WordPress.com, the vendor will likely automatically update the base software directly. But it's still wise to be aware of platform updates and ensure your vendor is performing them in a timely manner. If you're just a regular user, you need to exercise some caution on your own. How do you watch out for hack sites? And there are usually a few clear giveaways. First, a site that tries to automatically initiate a software download or begin spamming you with pop-up ads is clearly not reliable. If you encounter these issues, navigate away immediately. Next, consider the content of the page. Does it seem like a page is full of unnecessary typos? Does it feel out of place compared to the rest of the site? Watch out for clear problems like these, which are good signs to tell whether or not the site may be hacked. Other times, you won't need to look for warning signs at all. You'll receive them directly. Google displays warnings whenever it suspects a hack page appears in its results. Additionally, browsers like Google Chrome will automatically display a warning for insecure or potentially compromised sites. This gives you a chance to avoid visiting a page and exposing your machine to danger altogether. And if you do run into these type of messages while you're visiting a website that you know is legit, there's a chance that that website may actually be hacked. And notifying the webmaster that their website may be hacked is something nice to do so it doesn't affect other users along the way, and it helps get the hack cleared up a lot quicker.
I would imagine that's especially true if it's like a business or a blog that you visit, but that maybe isn't updated every day or something. I know that I've had sites in the past. I mean, macOS Ken right now, which is the site, of course, for my daily podcast, I'm doing something with that site every day. Plus, it's also a software as a service thing, so I have less to worry about there. But I know that I've had sites for shows in the past where I might go to that site once a week. And so I might not know, if that happened on the second day, hey, somebody's posting something awful on your site. I might not know it for a few days. That's a forum example, but my point is letting a smaller vendor, I would think, not vendor like security vendor, but a smaller vendor, a smaller website owner know, hey, there's something going on with your site. Could actually let them know a lot sooner too, and also help out anybody else who visits.
Exactly. I was at a band website. I was like, whoa, I think I just saw some weird pop-up going on trying to auto-download something. I clicked back. I went back again, it didn't happen, and I replicated it on a different browser, and it only showed up when the referring URL was from Google. So if I were the webmaster, I wouldn't search for my own website, right? I know what my own website is. I'd type it in directly, but it was only showing up in that case when it came in from other sources.
That is fascinating. It's so amazing to me, like, and sad how much stuff we have to watch out for. Like, yes, you're right. And I should have known, because I even said the word malvertising in the list earlier. You're going to a website that you're always going to, and you see something odd, and it's probably not the website, it's probably someone else. I mean, on the one hand, props to the bad guy for being ingenious. It would be nice, though, if he used his powers for good instead of evil. Along the lines kind of the hacked site, I think, which is why I was asking the two, or trying to conflate the question earlier. Talk to me about malvertising. The idea of basically somebody serving you an ad that's got something in it that's not overly friendly.
Well, with the humongous number of ads present on pretty much every website we visit, it would be nice if we could trust all of them to be safe. Unfortunately, we can't. Hackers realize that if they can reach potentially millions of people, if they can infiltrate an ad network, that's kind of an attractive target. This type of malicious advertising is referred to as malvertising. How malvertising reaches a live web page can vary. At times, a vulnerability in the ad network itself might allow an attacker to compromise ads and cause them to deliver malware to users. This is especially common back when many websites relied on Adobe Flash Player to play those animated ads, the really annoying auto-playing videos. In other cases, the ads themselves were poisoned intentionally. By disguising themselves as a legitimate ad provider, malicious hackers would purchase ad space on major ad networks by providers like Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, and others. Then built into the ad is code created to specifically exploit browser vulnerabilities to deliver malware to users. This approach is growing year after year and pretty popular. Mainstream websites have suffered from events where pages serve malvertising, like you discussed earlier, Ken, with one of the music service providers. Mm-hmm. Well, avoiding shady websites can help you avoid a lot of malware in the first place. It's not always easy to know when these malicious ads will strike. They can happen on mainstream websites. And the widespread malvertising campaigns demonstrate that security weaknesses remain a major problem across the internet. In this case, an ad blocking or antivirus program would be a good line of defense, and we will discuss those a little bit later in the podcast.
Yeah, but first we got to get other ways that people are just sort of handing off malware, I suppose, from one person to another. It's so sad that file sharing ends up being among this, because you'd like to think that Sesame Street, the whole, sharing is caring kind of thing, would be, this would be awesome. The only problem is, it's just, if you're just going looking for a free movie, somebody knows that like a free movie is going to be an excellent way to drop something that you don't want on your computer is my guess. Which is not to say that all file sharing or that all P2P networks are bad or all of it's wrong, but that is a vector for contracting some of these, for some of the malware, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, file sharing or P2P sites, peer-to-peer sites, have always been that category of site that has a reputation for being a hive of malware. A hive of scum and villainy, if we want Star Wars reference for the day. Basically, anything that's focused on file sharing. Okay, I suppose we need to say it. You shouldn't engage in copyright infringement at all.
Right.
But people do anyway. They don't want to pay for that movie. They don't want to pay for that song. But possibly that threat of malware will be an added incentive to stay away from those illegal torrent trackers and disreputable file sharing websites and similar places like that on the internet. When you're downloading files anonymously from some other user, how do you know that you're getting what you actually think you're getting? The file might be labeled innocently, like whatever popular movie, or something simple like sample or screenshot or text document, but turns out to basically be some potent malware or a ransomware attack, something nasty. File sharing websites themselves also often play host to many of the malicious ads we talked about before. So that kind of makes them dangerous to visit in general. So if you're visiting those types of sites, you're far more likely to encounter pages that fall into some of those distribution methods we discussed earlier, either outright distributing the malware on purpose, or a hacked site, or malvertising with ads. Basically, one of the most popular methods of malware distribution targets users who are looking to watch that popular movie or TV show for free online. And those malicious sites will tell the user that they need to download and install that plugin or special piece of software in order to watch a video. When the user does so, they're actually infecting their machine with malware. And to top it off, the malicious site never actually plays their movie. The type of scam is really common. Goes to show that there's no honor among thieves. So when you're searching for illegitimate copies of movies, music, or software, you're exposing your Mac to a ton of risk and potentially inviting malware into your machine through an open door. Generally, if a website offers free downloads of apps or movies or anything like that that you would otherwise have to pay for, don't place your trust in the site. In fact, don't visit that site at all. That's the simplest and safest, most effective way to avoid the threats that those sites represent.
Sort of along those lines, I would think then, and this may go back to I think we've actually sort of mentioned things like this a few times already. I mean, first of all, you're visiting one of these sites. It says, hey, you're downloading, the next Avengers movie or the last Avengers movie. And no, it turns out you're not. You're downloading, malware. You visit a site that says, hey, you need to update Adobe Flash, but it's not actually how Adobe Flash gets updated. And so again, I mean, these are all ways that downloads are basically deceptive downloads that are designed to trick you, or tricking people into downloading the malware just, willingly and on their own.
Sometimes a malware author creates software that looks legitimate, perhaps even masquerading as another popular program. Hidden beneath the surface is a payload of malicious code waiting to launch when you run the software. This is a classic way to attack users, especially if a hacker can develop a false sense of trust. Where will you find this type of malware? Well, it could show up in many places. One of the most likely is simply inside a email attachment. While spam filters catch many of these emails today, some can still slip through. This is why you should never download or open an attachment from unknown senders, and why you should be careful even with attachments from people you know. It's all too easy to trust that something sent to you by a friend is safe. In the same vein, an email could contain a bogus link that sends you to a site for downloading malware. One popular ruse in the past was the e-card gimmick. An email would claim that a friend had sent you an e-card to mark a special occasion. Upon visiting the link, the site would encourage you to download and run software to view the card. Upon execution, though, it became clear that you had been tricked into running malware. Other times, malicious software pretends to be something you need to successfully complete an action on the computer. This might be, like we mentioned earlier, a codec to play a particular video or a font necessary to view a certain website. In practically every case, that's not true. If a website asks you to download something in order to continue using it, beware. It's probably not what it seems.
That's so amazing. I'm sorry. I'm thinking every day on my RSS reader, there's one site that I go to that tells me, hey, this font's missing. You need to download it. And now I'm wondering if I need to get in touch with the person running that site to let them know that in my RSS reader that's showing up. Hey, quick question, guys. Would I get in touch then with the person whose RSS feed is being read by my RSS reader, or do I get in touch with the people who made the RSS reader at that point?
The person whose site you're using the RSS reader to read, not the RSS reader vendor. The person running the website that has the missing font.
Okay, because the thing is, I actually know that that site is legit, but from everything that we've just talked about to this point, I mean, it's possible that they don't know that this is being done. There's
also been a recent attack, I believe, that was basically saying that a website was missing a font. It was basically hacked WordPress or hacked whatever website, and then it would say, if you visit the site, it would say it's missing a font, needs to run this whatever to do it, and it was something else entirely that was, attempting to infect the machine. And those error messages can occur for legitimate reasons too, but I just know recently that's been an issue. So yeah, I guess I would contact the person running the site first, and then maybe do both. Maybe contact the RSS reader vendor as well and say, hey, when I go to view this RSS feed, it's saying I need to install this font. Yeah, go for both in that case, I'd say.
Okay. Well, that'll give me something to do later today. But we got to finish up this episode first. So we've done the 5 items on the checklist. The good news is we're not just going to leave you standing there afraid, wondering what you should or should not do. We're going to head and hit some ideas of how you can protect yourself from some of the threats that we've addressed.
So with obviously, as we kind of talked about here today, there are lots of ways for malware to reach your Mac. And sometimes it can kind of feel like you're facing down this incoming tide of malware all by yourself. However, there are ways to protect yourself and stay safe even in this world of constantly evolving threats. First, watch out for the warning signs and observe the precautions we've talked about today. It includes everything from watching out for strange pop-up ads to avoiding unknown email attachments to not trusting those download messages. Kind of a proactive attitude towards security can help you spot and avoid almost all of the most common malware distribution methods. Be especially wary about those pop-ups that claim that malware already exists on your machine. It's a really popular scam. Some of them even have your computer, speak and say, your machine is infected. Call 1-800, we're not a real company. And it's basically kind of a scam. It's not really malware itself there. That's a straight up scam. You call a company, they have you run some software so they can remotely connect to your machine. They say, I'm going to clean up all this malware and charge you $300. And it's all fake. So that one's something to be aware of. Never trust those kind of pop-ups, basically. If you're browsing the web and something pops up saying that you have malware or must run a scan, don't trust those. Obviously, keep in mind that those are different from Google's browsing alerts. If it's Google, like if you're using Chrome and it says, this website's been known to distribute malware, are you sure you want to proceed? Or Safari says it, or it's in the search results. That's legitimate. That's fine. But if something's popping up when you're browsing the web telling you to download and run some software, pay somebody some money, whatever, ignore that. With that being said, however, you should make sure that you have some form of legitimate anti-malware or antivirus software installed on your system, both as a preventative and protective measure. If you're performing scans regularly with your security software, it's easy to either avoid infection or at least catch it early. When you do have a real malware problem, you'll obviously need a solution to remove it from your machine as well. So basically, just by taking those steps, to kind of be a little paranoid, don't automatically trust everything you see on the web. You can go a good amount of the distance in terms of protecting yourself from some of these most common attack methods.
I do want to let people know about one website that is both informative and safe. It is, of course, the website for this show. SecureMac.com/checklist. If you want to go back over the items on this list, some of the steps that we talked about, this would be a good, you'd want to let them know, especially if you're talking about like your mom or your dad or your aunt or your uncle. This would actually be a good thing to send to someone or maybe turn them on to this show. Because a lot of people listening, I know, are very aware of these kinds of security threats that we've talked about today. But you've all got people in your life who are calling you all the time saying, oh, I think I clicked on something. So SecureMac.com/checklist not only gives them, the notes that we've had where they can actually go and check them out, but of course they can listen to the show there as well. If you have questions or comments for this show, something you'd like to hear us talk about some other time, we'd love to hear from you. That is checklist@securemac.com is our email address. That address again, checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please remember this. You are listening to The Checklist by SecureMac. And we'll talk to you next week.